Ladies and gentlemen, this Red Gaming Technical video, let us discuss the next generation of Nvidia graphics cards. So are we discussing Maxwell? Well, not exactly sure yet. You'll come to realise what I mean in just a few moments. This has all come about because of a leaked roadmap by the notebook manufacturer known as Clevo, that is C-L-E-V-O, in case you want to Google around. And they are stating that the Geforce 800M, which by the way denotes mobile GPUs, will be available in February. So there are actually several derivatives of this, each are mobile parts, and we'll discuss more about this in just a moment. There's the Geforce, each of these are Geforce, so I'm not going to bother to read that out every time, but there's the GT840M, the GTX 850, the GTX 880, the GTX 870, and as well as the 860. All of those are M, so obviously denoting mobile. Now, here's where it becomes a little bit confusing. The 880M appears to be offered with 8 GB of GDDR5 memory. But from the linked roadmap, it's not clear if this means an SLI configuration or not. By the way, guys, I'm going to link this in the video's description so you can check it out yourself. And there's also the same with the GTX 870. That's advertised with 6 GB. Meanwhile, even the 860 has 4 gigs. That's pretty strange, because even if the GTX 860 is about as fast as, let's say, the GTX 770 of today, let's just use that as a benchmark, I don't really think it's going to require 4 gigs of RAM. It's just a bit too much memory. And so, it's likely this is referring to an SLI configuration. But even so, it means that the 880M is going to have a ridiculous amount of memory. It's going to have 4 gigs. Now, I'd like to point out that for a mobile GPU, to have that amount of memory is pretty damn impressive. As we know, PC GPUs, typically have about 2, possibly 3 gigs of RAM, which is more than sufficient for most resolutions. It's certainly enough for 1080p, and even fine for dual or triple monitor resolutions in most instances, unless you're really piling on high levels of anti-aliasing. Of course, next generation games are definitely going to become a bit more memory hungry. Now, what we do know about the next generation Nvidia cards, the Maxwells, is that, well, not much. We have some rumors, and I'm probably going to go into those in a separate video because it's quite a lengthy list. But we are fairly certain, well, at least these sources are claiming, that these are not 20nm parts, so they're not 20nm GPUs. So, is this a rebranding? So, for example, is this like 780s rebranded, maybe with a slight difference in, say, power? So, say, power usage reduced, or maybe slightly higher clock speeds, or whatever. Or are these truly next generation Maxwell GPUs? Well, honestly speaking, it's a bit hard to know. As someone like myself, who currently has the GTX 600 range cards, I actually really want to upgrade my system, and I'm kind of caught in this bastardized zone of looking at the GTX 7 series and thinking to myself, well, no point going for the 770, because that's pretty much exactly the same speed as the card that I've got now, which is basically GTX 680. So no point in going for that, because the difference is going to be pretty much none. So that really leaves me with the 780 or the GTX 780 Ti. And as we know, I'm going to be plopping down quite a bit of cash for, say, the GTX 780 Ti. So it doesn't really make sense for me to just say, hey, you know what's an absolutely fantastic idea for me to basically spend, well, $400 or $500, depending on, how lucky I get with the pricing and so on. Is it really a good idea for me to spend, say, $500 when there's going to be a GTX 800 range coming out? Well, it really depends on the Maxwell. Unfortunately, there's not that much information right now. I wouldn't be surprised if Nvidia keep the GPUs to about 4 gigs. We, of course, know that Titan has more, but The Titan currently weighs in with 6 gigabytes of GDDR5 memory. Meanwhile, the regular GTX 780 Ti, of course, has roughly half the amount. Obviously, you can get cards from some manufacturers that do indeed load it up with a bit more frame buffer, should you so wish. So it's kind of an interesting point right now. And obviously, AMD are putting some pressure on Nvidia with the GTX. Sorry, the GTX. That's an interesting brand for AMD. I'm sure they'd love that one. With the AMD Radeon 290 and the 290X. Currently, most would argue that the 290 is probably about the best in terms of bang for buck that you can possibly get. Obviously, the GTX 780 Ti, God, there's so many different numbers, it's getting confusing, particularly late at night. But the 780 Ti is about the fastest you can get, and certainly a little bit cheaper than the Titan, although of course Titan has the better floating point performance, so if you're interested in, say, using it as a workstation as well, you've got that. So what do you do if you're looking to upgrade your system and you're thinking, tasty graphics cards? Well, honestly, it's a bit tricky to say. I'm not exactly sure what to tell ye. I would say that it's possible that we're going to be getting some proper leaked specifications right now pretty soon from Nvidia's camp, but I guess we're just going to have to wait. It's pretty much a waiting game. In my opinion, the best time to always buy a graphics card is not on launch. It's generally speaking about a month afterwards when the good old price gouging stops. But I guess that's just down to you. So if that's left you with more questions than what you had when you initially went into the video, I'm glad to be of service. Anyway, I'm going to leave you to it. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video, or, probably been left with a somewhat what the hell is going on feeling, and that's good. That is the nature of tech. Sorry guys, I'm in a really weird mood tonight. I don't know what the heck's going on. I think it's just issues with technology today. Just, yeah, internet has died and goodness knows what else. Video encoding problems. Yeah, anyway, I'm going to see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.